The eatery thrummed with vibrant energy. The atmosphere was alive with laughter, the sound of clinking glasses, and a gentle murmur of background music. Golden fairy lights draped from the ceiling, enveloping the long dining table in a soft, inviting glow as my coworkers and I gathered to celebrate. This evening was meant to be extraordinary, my moment. Over the last 5 years, I have dedicated myself to this company, frequently staying late to tackle issues that others shied away from, and guiding junior staff despite it not being part of my official duties. For months, Richard, my boss, had been dropping subtle hints, suggesting that I was the next candidate for the senior manager role. This evening, at this very gathering, my promotion will be revealed. This moment had played out in my mind countless times. The cheers, the sense of accomplishment, the affirmation. I smoothed the hem of my navy blue dress and surveyed the table with a keen eye. My team was filled with enthusiasm, reveling in the company's quarterly achievement. At the head of the table, Richard stood, gently clinking his wineglass with a fork, beckoning for attention. Silence enveloped the room. My heart raced with eager expectation. "Is it happening tonight?" he started, his resonant voice cutting through the noise of conversation. "I would like to take a moment to acknowledge an individual who stands out remarkably, demonstrating extraordinary commitment, ambition, and skill in their brief time with us at the company. Finding someone who can create such a significant influence in just 3 months is truly exceptional." My smile wavered. 3 months? Richard glanced over at my colleague, Lisa. "Lisa, the new recruit. Lisa," he went on, "you have surpassed every expectation we had. Your exceptional leadership, innovative thinking, and adept problem-solving abilities have truly stood out, and it is with great excitement that I announce your promotion to senior manager." "Well done." The space filled with enthusiastic clapping. I remained completely still. My fingers tightened around the stem of my champagne glass. My throat constricted as I compelled a smile to grace my lips. I joined in the applause with the crowd as Lisa rose, her cheeks flushed, and humbly embraced her new title. This was not occurring. My world seemed to shift ever so slightly when Richard turned to face me, as though he had just recalled my presence. He smiled broadly. "And naturally, Kathy, you've been an incredibly important part of the team," he remarked. "Your efforts are truly valued." That was the moment. An empty recognition. A well-deserved acknowledgement following 5 years of dedication and effort. I forced the lump in my throat down and stretched my smile even broader. "Without a doubt, Lisa truly deserves it," I remarked, raising my glass in celebration. Richard gave a satisfied nod. "She accomplishes much more than you do already, Kathy. It would be beneficial for you to jot down some notes." Joyful sounds of mirth. Lisa chuckled nervously and whispered, "Oh, I wouldn't put it that way." Yet the words lingered, suspended in the atmosphere like a stinging blow to my cheek. I joined in their laughter. What other options are available to me? Weep? Request? Inquire about the reasons behind his decision to lead me on for months, only to bring about my humiliation. I raised my glass to my lips and savored a deliberate sip. As the evening unfolded, a smile crept across my face. I engaged in conversation. I rejoiced. Yet within, turmoil was stirring. As the festivities drew to a close and I emerged into the refreshing embrace of the night, I retrieved my phone. My fingers quivered just a bit as I crafted a brief, straightforward email to HR. Subject: Letter of Resignation Submission. Dear Richard, I have attached my official resignation letter for your review. In effect right away. Warm regards, Kathy. For just a fleeting moment, I paused before pressing send. Once the email was dispatched from my outbox, I inhaled deeply. After a long time, an unexpected feeling washed over me. Exhilaration. However, my journey was far from complete. On Monday, Richard was on the brink of discovering the consequences of underestimating someone he shouldn't have. That Monday morning, the atmosphere in the office was distinctly altered. I entered through the front doors, feeling a calm sense of accomplishment, my resignation letter already resting in Richard's inbox. He was completely unaware of what lay ahead. Initially, everything appeared to be as it should. The receptionist welcomed me with a radiant smile. The break room buzzed with the chatter of my coworkers, each savoring their morning coffee. Lisa sat at her desk, reveling in the warmth of her recent promotion. I felt no anger towards Lisa. She was innocent of any wrongdoing. The true issue lingered within the confines of the corner office. The man who deceived me for months, convincing me of my worth, only to cast me aside as if I were insignificant. I eased into the moment, gently setting my bag down next to my desk and starting up my computer with a sense of purpose. I desired Richard to approach me. And just as expected, his office door swung open. "Kathy, please come to my office." At this moment, all at once, the room fell into a hush. Individuals cast anxious looks at one another. Richard's voice had never resonated in such a way before. Immediate, perplexed, frantic. I rose gradually, adjusted my blouse, and made my way into his office. The door clicked softly into place behind me. Richard sat at his desk, the printed resignation letter laid out before him. He lifted his gaze, his eyes searching my face as if attempting to discern whether this was some sort of jest. "So, you're heading out?" His voice carried a sense of disbelief. "Indeed." I settled into my seat opposite him, my hands neatly folded in my lap. "In effect right away." "But what is the reason?" "This is quite unexpected, we haven't talked about this at all." A gentle chuckle escaped my lips. "We also didn't touch on Lisa's promotion, yet here we find ourselves." His jaw clenched. "Kathy, please understand that it wasn't meant to be personal. She has clearly surpassed your performance." "She has been here for 3 months, I remarked, tilting my head. "Well, if that's your perspective, then so be it." Richard inclined his body, eager and attentive. "I hope you realize how much I value you, don't you? Your contribution to this company over the past 5 years has been invaluable. I can't bear the thought of losing you." I gazed at him for an extended moment, absorbing the boldness of his statement. "Are you really willing to let me go?" I reiterated, arching an eyebrow. "Yet, you had no issue disregarding my efforts for a promotion I dedicated years to achieving. You found it amusing when I was embarrassed at my own celebration party. And you had no hesitation in suggesting that I take notes from someone who just arrived." His demeanor changed, the familiar air of self-assuredness starting to falter. "Look," he said, raking his fingers through his hair. "Perhaps I erred in my judgment. Perhaps I could have approached it in another way. But you're stepping down unexpectedly? This isn't the best decision, Kathy. Your choice is driven by feelings." I smiled, yet the warmth was absent. "I dispatched that email on Friday night, Richard. If this were merely a matter of emotion, I would have left in a fit of anger that very evening. However, I did not. This was my plan all along. And I'm departing according to my own wishes." His hand clenched into a tight fist on the desk. He had never encountered defeat before. "What do you have in mind?" he inquired, his tone now cutting. "Please consider exploring options with one of our competitors, as I must remind you, Kathy, that we are bound by non-compete agreements." I chuckled once more. Oh, he was completely unaware. "I have no need to seek out a rival," I declared, rising to my feet. "It appears, Richard, that during the time you chose to overlook my efforts, another individual recognized their value." He scowled. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I inhaled deeply, savoring the experience. "Do you recall Andrew Carter? The CFO you dismissed last year?" Richard's muscles tightened. Certainly, he recalled. Andrew had been among the company's most esteemed executives, yet he and Richard had encountered conflicts far too often. Richard had pushed him aside, believing he could easily be substituted. "Andrew contacted me a few months back." I pressed on. "He's launching his own firm, and he asked me to head the operations department, a role at the director level. Initially, I rejected his proposal. I remained steadfast in my commitment to this company. I leaned in a bit closer, softening my tone. However, everything shifted on Friday night. As soon as I stepped away from the party, I reached out to him, and he reiterated the offer. I agreed. Stillness. Raw, unadulterated astonishment. Richard gazed at me as if he were attempting to comprehend the details. So, you're heading off to join Andrew's company? He finally spoke, his voice strained. I begin next Monday. I have confirmed. He parted his lips, sealed them again, and then let out a quick breath. Kathy, let's be sensible about this. This organization has been your sanctuary for 5 years. Let's find a solution together. We can discuss. I prefer not to engage in conversation. I interjected seamlessly. This choice is conclusive. He tightened his jaw. Returning is not an option. A smile graced my lips. I will not require that. I pivoted, making my way toward the door. Just before I made my exit, I hesitated. Do you know, Richard? I remarked casually, glancing back. It's amusing how one only comes to understand the value of another when they choose to leave. As I stepped outside, I shut the door firmly, leaving him to face the repercussions of his choices in solitude. It was an incredible experience. As I exited Richard's office, an unmistakable sensation washed over me. Every gaze was fixed in my direction. The open workspace fell into an unsettling hush. The typical buzz of Monday morning was overshadowed by a heavy, palpable tension hanging in the atmosphere. My colleagues had completely abandoned any pretense of productivity. Curious faces emerged above the partitions. My eyes flitted away the moment our gazes locked. It was clear that an event had transpired. In just a few moments, they would discover precisely what was at stake. With a tranquil demeanor, I approached my desk, opened my email, and sent my resignation letter to the entire leadership team. Topic: Formal notice of resignation. I am resigning from my position at the company, effective immediately. This is an unforgettable experience for me. Outstanding. Kathy Simple. Expert. The core message was unmistakable. I had reached my limit. Moments later, the initial murmur began to circulate across the floor. Next, another. Next, another one. The blaze had ignited. It wasn't long before someone came up to me. Kathy, is that really the case? I glanced over to Rachel, one of the rare individuals I genuinely trusted in this environment. She appeared utterly astonished. I inclined my head slightly, offering her a faint smile. Indeed, the moment has come for me to embark on a new journey. She let out a quick breath, her head shaking in disbelief. Incredible. Simply incredible. I understand where you're coming from, but I never imagined you would truly go. Richard didn't either. I whispered under my breath. She released a sound that was part laughter, part derision. Well, he's quite foolish. It's clear to all of us that you are more than worthy of that promotion. A handful of colleagues began to inch closer to my desk, feigning busyness while clearly listening in on the conversation. Even Lisa had lifted her gaze from across the room, her eyes flitting between me and Richard's office as if caught in a dilemma of guilt or relief. I could feel her uncertainty. She felt the urge to express herself. Yet she chose not to. To be honest, I had lost all interest. 10 minutes later, just as I was gathering the final remnants of my belongings, my inbox chimed with an urgent meeting request from Richard. Topic: Immediate attention required. Let's have a conversation. Request for a meeting. Quarter of an hour. Setting: my workspace. I gazed at the email for what felt like an eternity before letting out a deep sigh. Desperate individuals resort to extreme measures. I leisurely made my way back to his office. As I entered, the door gently clicked shut behind me. Richard appeared transformed now. The hubris? Departed. The arrogance? Departed. Instead, he appeared as though he had just come to the startling realization that he had made a colossal error. Kathy, he began, leaning in closer. Let's discuss this matter further. Your decision seems hasty. I released a gentle chuckle. Richard, I dedicated 5 years of my life to this. The sole impulsive choice in this situation was yours. His lips formed a firm, unyielding line. I acknowledge that I didn't handle the promotion as well as I should have, but there's a way to make it right. I will match whatever Andrew is proposing to you. I inclined my head. You have no idea what Andrew is proposing to me. Is it significant? He retorted. We'll come up with a solution. I can secure you a higher salary, increased flexibility, perhaps even. I raised a hand, interrupting him. It seems you're not quite grasping the situation, are you? Stillness. I inclined my body slightly forward. It was never about the financial gain. It centered around respect. His jaw tightened. I refuse to remain in an organization that overlooks my contributions until I express my intention to depart. I prefer not to be paired up just as I'm about to leave. If I held no worth to you in the past, what makes me think that has changed now? Richard's nostrils quivered ever so slightly. He found it unsettling to relinquish command of the dialogue. Kathy, let's be sensible about this. Why are you leaving a secure situation behind? A venture that may not even thrive? A smile graced my lips. That startup is led by someone who appreciates my input, and I prefer to invest in my own potential rather than remain in an environment that makes me feel expendable. I rose to my feet. Farewell, Richard. With that, I stepped outside. As I packed the final items, a sense of surrealism washed over me. As I transported my box to the elevator, a handful of colleagues offered gentle applause, subtle nods to my quiet triumph. They were aware. Lisa, remaining at her desk, mustered the bravery to rise and approach me. Kathy, I had no idea. I arched an eyebrow. What was it that you didn't know? Her lips parted, then sealed once more. She was aware. Certainly, she was aware. Though she may not have been the architect of it, she certainly reaped the rewards of my misfortune. Everything is all right, Lisa. I remarked, with a gentle tone. Relish the opportunity that comes with the promotion. She recoiled slightly, yet I was already making my way into the elevator. With the door closing behind me, I exhaled deeply. This was more than merely a conclusion. This marked the start. The Monday following my final departure from Richard's office, I found myself standing before a modern glass building, absorbing the essence of my fresh start. Carter and Associates. Andrew's company may have been smaller than my previous one, yet it thrived with a vibrant energy and a strong sense of ambition. It was brimming with individuals who were crafting something new, rather than merely operating a mechanism designed by another. I crossed the threshold, experiencing a sensation that had eluded me for years. Anticipation. No longer will I be in the shadows. It's time to recognize true worth. Richard is no longer present. As I ascended in the elevator to the top floor, my image in the mirror-like doors appeared transformed, exuding confidence and vitality. This was more than merely a new position. This was liberation. As I entered my new office, a genuine workspace adorned with expansive windows and a door that I could truly shut, I felt an undeniable sense of affirmation in my decision. The morning unfolded with a series of introductions, meetings, and onboarding, yet there was an unmistakable sense of distinction from my previous workplace. To begin with, individuals in this place genuinely paid attention. At my inaugural leadership meeting, Andrew glanced my way, a smile on his face. Kathy, I would like you to take charge of our new initiative. We are reorganizing our operations, and given your expertise, you are the ideal candidate for this task. In an instant. Do not plead. I refuse to continuously validate my value. They were already aware of my worth. I nodded, stifling the impulse to look around and check if this was some sort of examination. I would be delighted to, I replied with ease. A handful of my new colleagues offered smiles of approval. Andrew nodded, as though he had anticipated no different response. This was the way things ought to be. No games. Keep it apolitical. Only respect. 2 days after my departure, the initial indication that all was unraveling at Richard's company became evident. A message from Rachel made my phone vibrate. Rachel. Kathy. Oh my goodness. Richard is unraveling. Since your departure, chaos has taken over. I couldn't help but smirk as I continued to read. Rachel. He found it necessary to convene an urgent meeting, as there seems to be a lack of understanding regarding many of the tasks she once managed with ease. It appears that Lisa isn't doing anything beyond what you already accomplish. She seems completely unaware of her actions. I burst into laughter. Absolutely. Clearly, Richard had misjudged Lisa's skills while failing to recognize my own. A second message arrived. Rachel. Oh, and listen to this. 3 clients have already contacted us, specifically inquiring about you. Their reaction to your departure was far from positive. A wave of fulfillment washed over me. Richard had devoted years to overlooking my worth. What comes next? He was finally grasping a lesson that had eluded him for far too long. Certain individuals hold a unique place that cannot be filled by anyone else. That afternoon, as I was immersed in strategy documents in my new office, my assistant peeked in. Kathy, there's a call waiting for you on line 1. Dawson and Company is the name of the firm. They mentioned having collaborated with you in the past and are interested in talking about transferring their account. I blinked. Dawson and Company stood out as one of the largest clients at my previous workplace. Go ahead and connect them, I instructed, maintaining a calm tone despite the rapid beating of my heart. Shortly after, the unmistakable voice of Mark Dawson, the CEO, reached my ears. Kathy, he said, with a gentle warmth in his voice. I heard you made the transition to Carter and Associates. Let's have a conversation. I reclined in my chair, a gradual grin unfolding on my lips. Absolutely, Mark. How may I assist you today? In just a week, 3 of my previous employer's largest clients contacted me, each voicing the same dissatisfaction. Everything has changed since your departure. It seems we no longer have the assurance of being well cared for. If you are at the helm of operations at Carter and Associates, we are keen on making a transition. Thus, one after another, they complied. I did not take clients from others. I had no need to. They chose to depart on their own accord, placing their trust in me rather than in the organization I was previously associated with. What about Richard? He was in a frantic rush. Rachel continued to share updates with me. Rachel. Lisa is struggling to stay afloat. She is completely unprepared for this role. This morning, I overheard Richard raising his voice at the leadership team during a private meeting. Rachel. The board is extremely upset regarding the losses incurred with the client. Investors are feeling discontent. It seems there's mounting pressure on Richard to resolve this issue. Quick. The expression on his face was beyond my imagination. The overwhelming sense of dread. The remorse. What's the most exciting aspect? I had no intention of causing him any pain. I was simply flourishing in another place. On that Friday afternoon, as I was wrapping up my tasks for the day, my phone vibrated with an email notification from Richard. I arched an eyebrow and proceeded to open it. Topic. A suggestion. Kathy, I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss something with you. I am confident that we can reach an agreement that serves both our interests well. If you're interested, let's arrange a meeting next week to explore our options. I eagerly await your reply. Richard. I reclined in my chair, a gentle chuckle escaping my lips. He was in a state of utter despair. For the first time in 5 years, I held all the power. I gazed at Richard's email for a while, allowing the profound irony of it to sink in. The man who had brushed me off with such ease. The individual who had found amusement at my cost. The man who informed me that Lisa does much more than you already know. Now, it was the one extending a hand. And I understood precisely the reason behind it. His universe was crumbling around him. I carefully considered my response. There is no rush. There is no sense of urgency. I've just completed the calculation for control. Topic. Regarding. A suggestion. Richard, I can meet briefly on Monday at 10 a.m. Please inform me if that is suitable for you. Warm regards, Kathy. I pressed send and shut my laptop. I wasn't entering that meeting to bargain. I entered with the intention of witnessing his discomfort. At exactly 10 a.m., I entered the well-known glass office building I had departed from weeks earlier. Everything seemed transformed. The receptionist paused briefly before offering her greeting. Caught in a haze, I couldn't tell if I was merely a visitor or a specter lingering from days gone by. As I walked by, I caught the furtive looks of employees. Everyone was aware. As I entered Richard's office, he came into view. He appeared quite disheveled. Shadows linger beneath his eyes. He sat with a palpable tension in his posture. His fingers drummed impatiently on the desk. He had transformed from the condescending figure who had looked down on me just weeks prior. "Thank you for coming in," he said, managing a strained smile. I settled into my seat, crossing my legs and resting my hands gently in my lap. "Absolutely. What thoughts are swirling in your head?" He let out a breath and leaned in closer. "I will be concise and to the point. Your return is essential, Kathy." I remained silent. "Allow the words to linger, thick with irony." He pressed on. "I didn't fully appreciate your contribution in this situation. I must confess that. However, we have the ability to correct this. Should you choose to come back, I am ready to present you with a significant increase in salary, a prestigious executive position, and complete autonomy in decision-making for your department." He reclined, evidently anticipating my admiration. No, I wasn't. I inclined my head. "Allow me to clarify this situation. You had 5 years to see my worth. 5 years dedicated to my promotion. 5 years to honor my craft. I allowed that to settle before proceeding. Instead, you chose someone with just 3 months of experience and suggested I take notes on how to improve. And now, after losing important clients and witnessing your company decline, suddenly you're presenting me with everything I rightfully deserved from the beginning." Richard's jaw clenched. "Kathy, let's go." I raised a hand, halting him in his tracks. "May I pose a question to you? Had I chosen to stay, would I find myself in this chair at this moment? Did you extend this offer as a gesture of appreciation? Are you only taking action now because you're feeling a loss of control?" His silence spoke volumes. He attempted to conceal it, yet I could see it reflected in his gaze. The reality. He failed to recognize my value. Until it took away all he had. I released a soft, amused chuckle. I had the same impression. Richard's urgency surged forth. "Kathy, think wisely about this. This place holds a story for you. A vision of what lies ahead. Are you truly willing to discard all the effort you've invested in this company?" A smile graced my lips. "Richard, it seems you still haven't grasped the concept, have you?" I rose to my feet, adjusting my blazer with a careful hand, and leaned in just a bit. "I never required your presence. You required my presence. And now you're coming to the understanding that." His expression shifted, yet I could perceive it. The glimmer of anxiety lurking in his gaze. I turned and walked toward the door, but halted just before crossing the threshold. "It would be beneficial for you to jot down some notes, Richard," I murmured gently, reflecting his own words back to him. "Perhaps in the future, you'll come to appreciate those who truly keep your business thriving." After that, I stepped outside. This time, I forged ahead without a glance behind. At Carter and Associates, everything was flourishing. We have seen a significant increase in our client roster. Increasingly, businesses were abandoning Richard's failing venture and seeking our services. On a serene Friday afternoon, Rachel delivered one last update that had me bursting into laughter. Rachel. Richard has just lost his job. He was ousted by the board. The aftermath of the client losses proved insurmountable for them. I reclined in my chair, savoring my coffee. Flawless. Richard believed I could easily be substituted. It appears that he indeed was. What about me? I found myself precisely in the place I was destined to be.